I worked for years just to get into his honors class. But on the first day, the seat next to him was already taken. She smiled at me and said, "Chad's tutoring me after class. This seat's taken." I waited for him to correct her. He didn't. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't losing a seat. I was being replaced. Chapter 1. Every pair of eyes in the classroom was on me. And she just had to speak in that soft, syrupy voice. "Sweetheart, it's not nice to cut in line, you know? Chad's tutoring me, so this seat's taken." A ripple of whispers spread instantly. She just transferred here and already wants to steal someone's seat? Isn't she Chad's old childhood friend? I used to see her waiting for him outside all the time. Still, barging in like that? Talk about pushy. She probably thinks being top of her old class makes her special. No, that's not it. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. How was I supposed to tell them that Chad and I had already agreed on this? That I'd studied for months just to make it into his honors class? That he'd promised he'd saved a seat for me? Sweat gathered in my palms as I clutched my backpack straps. I looked toward Chad, desperate for help. For him to say just one word to clear the misunderstanding. But he turned his face away. Toward her. There was a faint smile in his eyes as he said softly, "Yeah, I'll help you after class." The room fell silent for half a second. Then someone snickered. Laughter burst out like a spark catching fire, spreading until it filled every corner of the classroom. My face burned. My mind went blank. I didn't understand. Didn't he say, once I got into his class, we'd work hard together? Chapter 2. The bell rang, signaling the start of class. Everyone straightened in their seats, notebooks open and ready. Chad glanced at me, then casually pointed toward the back. "Find a seat for now." I took a deep breath and walked down the aisle, my cheeks still burning. Behind me, that girl's soft voice drifted over, half teasing, half sweet. "Chad, your childhood friend doesn't look too happy." "It's fine," he said calmly. "Let's focus on class." "Okay." Her voice was small and delicate. I didn't have to turn around to imagine her shy, innocent expression. I don't even remember how I made it to the last row. All I know is that I ended up sitting stiffly in the only empty seat there. Someone was beside me. He must have heard the sound of my chair scraping, because he lifted his eyes briefly to glance my way. Then lowered his head again without a word. The entire period passed in a haze. Whatever the honors class teacher was explaining, none of it reached me. When the bell finally rang, Chad stood up from the front row and walked over. He placed a notebook on my desk. "Here, lecture notes for the honors class. Didn't think you'd actually make it in. Go through them on your own for now." The cover of the notebook was pink. The same one I'd given him at the start of the semester, now filled thick with notes. For some reason, a wave of hurt rose up in my chest, stinging my eyes before I could stop it. Chad blinked, then smirked. "What, getting emotional?" Before I could answer, the girl behind him stood up, pressing a hand to her forehead in feigned frustration. "Chad, I still didn't get what you just said." He turned around instantly. The moment he did, the notebook I'd been holding was pulled right out of my hands. "Wait a sec, let Chloe copy this first." He took it back and walked off without another glance. My eyes blurred, and this time the tears spilled over. Out of nowhere, a pack of tissues landed on my desk. My new deskmate, who'd slept through the entire class, finally lifted his head, his cool, sharp eyes filled with annoyance. "Don't cry next to me." I startled, fumbling to wipe my tears dry. But my gaze, almost involuntarily, drifted toward the front of the room. To the boy and girl leaning close together over a notebook. My throat tightened. All the strangeness of this new environment. All the disappointment and quiet rejection I'd been holding back came crashing in at once. I tried to push it down. But the more I tried, the harder it became to breathe. My new seatmate sighed, clearly irritated. Then he pulled off his uniform jacket, draped it over his face, and went right back to sleep. Chapter 3. The bell rang again. The teacher walked in with a stack of lesson plans, and class began. Maybe it was just that the honors class moved too fast. No matter how hard I tried to keep up, the material still felt impossibly dense. My deskmate finally woke up. He looked at me, eyes cool and unreadable. Then, without warning, he said, "You copied it wrong." My heart skipped a beat. I blinked at him, confused. He snatched my pen, scribbling the correct solution across my notebook with quick, precise strokes. My eyes could follow the logic. But my brain couldn't catch up. I just sat there, dazed. He frowned. "So this is what it takes to get into the honors class?" His voice dropped lower as he leaned back onto his desk. Standards must be slipping. It wasn't until I went to the restroom later that I learned his name. Vincent. 2 girls were whispering near the mirrors. The transfer student sitting next to Vincent. Well, that fits. The one who came through the back door and the one who transferred late, they're a perfect match. Their giggles echoed off the tiles. Something in me snapped. Before I could think, I shoved open the stall door and stormed out. But they'd already turned the corner. All I saw were the backs of 2 girls walking away, still laughing. Chapter 4. The honors class was intense. Every student there was fighting for a spot at a good university. By the time our evening session ended, my old classmates from the regular class had long gone home. I packed up my things, hesitating for a moment. Part of me wanted to wait for Chad. But as the room slowly emptied, my courage began to fade. Just when I was about to give up, Chad finally stood and walked toward me. Before he could say anything, Chloe's gentle voice called out from behind him. Her pale cheeks were tinged with pink, her tone shy and hesitant. "Chad, I still can't figure out how to use that formula." He froze mid-step. His eyes flicked toward her, then toward me, awkward, uncertain. "It's getting late," I reminded softly. Chloe bit her lip. "I know. It's really late, and no one's picking me up tonight." Chad frowned immediately. He turned to me with an apologetic look. "You should head home first. I'll help Chloe with this one." Then he turned back. Chloe cast me a fleeting glance. And then, almost innocently, added, "Could you maybe walk me home after?" For a moment, my heart stopped. Then I heard him say, "Sure." Something inside me went completely still. My gaze met Chloe's. She smiled. Just a small, knowing smile. And that was all it took for my chest to ache. Chapter 5. I'd never stayed at school past 9 before. By the time I stepped outside, the sky was already pitch black. Every building had gone dark, only the lights from the honors classroom still glowed behind me. But the farther I walked, the dimmer that light became. I quickened my pace. Then, somewhere ahead, I thought I saw a figure moving in the dark. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, but the shadow kept getting closer. Instinctively, I pulled out my phone and called my emergency contact. The small screen glowed faintly against the night. Beep. It connected. And then, the call was cut off. I stared at the screen, stunned, momentarily forgetting to be afraid. The shadow stopped right in front of me. Before I could scream, a calm voice spoke. "Someone this timid made it into the honors class?" I looked up, startled. And met Vincent's eyes. He told me he hated weak people. That if I couldn't even handle walking home after night class, I should probably quit early and stop pretending. He told me, "No one in this world was born to save you." Then he turned around and walked away, leaving me standing there in the dark. I don't know how long I stood frozen. Until faint voices drifted from the direction of the campus. A girl's light, tinkling laughter. And Chad's voice. Chloe, I'll handle all your classes from now on. Her tone was soft and delicate. And what about your little childhood friend? She worked so hard to get into this class. Are you just going to ignore her? There was a pause. Then Chad said quietly. I didn't think she'd actually make it in. The night wind carried their voices farther and farther away. Behind me, the last bit of light disappeared completely. I tightened my grip on my phone and ran forward. No one was going to help me. So I'd help myself. Chapter 6. I don't remember how I made it home. All I know is that once I got there I cried until I had no strength left, couldn't even explain why. When I woke up, both my eyes were swollen like peaches. Going downstairs, I was surprised to find Chad waiting there. He had his hands in his pockets. What happened to your eyes? He asked. Because you transferred? Crying your eyes out? He came over like he always did and reached to ruffle my hair. I was busy when you called last night. Did you need something? I dodged his hand. It's nothing. Wrong number. Chad froze for a second. He looked at his hand, then at me, scanning me with that puzzled expression. What's the matter, Anna? Nothing, I said. Then suddenly he grabbed hold of me, his eyes complicated. Are you upset about something? He asked. I looked back, confused. No, I'm just going to school. Chad followed me, watching my back the whole way, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't bring himself to. I knew why he looked so surprised. We were textbook childhood friends. His father died when he was very young. In elementary school, if his mother worked late and couldn't come home, he'd sit at his window watching my house across the way, starving. He'd just sit there, hoping someone would notice. I remember the day I brought him a bowl of ribs from my family's dinner. He ate with such gusto, 2 big bowls, and then looked at me with shining eyes. Anna, you're so kind. I want to be with you forever. In middle school some boys picked on me during puberty. They cut off the braid I'd kept for years. Chad flew into a rage and fought that kid, even though he hadn't actually been beaten. He just snarled, Anna's mine. Hurt her and I'll. That's why he would nervously smooth my hair whenever he greeted me, afraid someone would cut it again. And I never pulled away. Chapter 7. When I stepped into the classroom, my new deskmate was already asleep. He stirred at the sound of my footsteps, his eyes pausing briefly, then flicking past me to land on Chad, who had just walked in behind me. Morning, I greeted softly. He gave me a single glance, then lowered his head back onto his arms. I sat down quietly, but the moment I did, he shot up again. Grabbing his jacket, he walked out of the classroom without a word. A few minutes later, he came back and dropped a chilled bottle of water on my desk. Use it, he muttered. Stop looking so puffy next to me. I stared at the bottle, warmth quietly blooming in my chest despite his tone. My voice came out small. About last night, thank you. I knew he hadn't waited there on purpose, or meant to scare me. Vincent let out a quiet, impatient sound through his nose, a faint humph, then tossed his jacket back over his head and went back to sleep. Did he never study in the honors class? So those girls yesterday, when they said he got in, through connections. They were talking about him? Chapter 8. The wind rustled through the curtains. From the front row came Chloe's sudden cry. My study notes, they're gone. It had nothing to do with me, but my chest still tightened with unease. The classroom was full. Chloe looked around anxiously, as if she'd been searching for a while. Then she hurried over to my desk, biting her lip. Anna, she said softly, I know you really want to study hard too, but those notes took me forever to put together last night. Could you give them back? My mind went blank with shock. I shot to my feet. What does that have to do with me? The room exploded instantly. No way, she really stole someone's notes just to get ahead? Ha! I lost a pen the other day, maybe she took that too. Chad frowned and walked over. Chloe, check again. It might not have anything to do with Anna. But when we left last night, Chloe said softly, I saw Anna was still here. Her voice trembled, pitiful but deliberate. If it were something else, I wouldn't mind, but those notes, you know how long it took me. Chad pressed his lips together, silent, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Anna, he asked quietly, you didn't leave last night? I let out a dry laugh. No, I didn't. I stayed long enough to hear you offering Chloe extra lessons. He froze. Before he could say another word, I shoved my books aside with a loud crash. My bag spilled open, everything scattering across the floor. I let out a cold laugh. Go ahead. You said I took it, right? Then come and find it. Everything on the floor was laid out plain as day. Chloe froze, her eyes darting around before she bit her lip and took 2 uneasy steps back. The room went silent for a beat, then a girl stood up to defend her. Well, if it's not there, who knows where she might have hidden it? I recognized those 2 girls immediately. The same ones who'd whispered about me in the restroom yesterday. I drew in a long breath. Fine. Let's call the police. I pulled out my phone and started dialing right there. Chloe's eyes reddened instantly. She pressed her voice small and trembling, still trying to turn things around. Anna, it's really not worth making such a scene. If you don't want to give it back, then I'll just rewrite it all. She sniffled delicately. It's just such a shame about that pink notebook. I really liked it. Chad's expression shifted. Pink? He went stiff, his face darkening as he turned toward me. Anna, the password book. You're the only one who knows the code. The meaning behind his words was clear without him having to finish. And just like that, I was trapped in a corner where I had to prove my own innocence. Even though I hadn't done anything wrong. My fingers trembled as I pressed the numbers on my phone. Then, a calm voice beside me cut through the tension. I happened to record something last night, Vincent said lazily, his long eyes half-lidded with sleep. His tone was casual, almost teasing. Chapter 9. Chloe froze. Why were you even here that late? She gritted her teeth. The power was out, there was no security camera footage. You say you have a recording? Are you lying for Anna? Vincent didn't even blink. He unlocked his phone, tapped a few times, and sent a video straight to the class group chat. All around us, phones started buzzing and pinging. I wasn't in the group, but I could hear the gasps and murmurs. Faces shifted. One by one, the students turned their gaze toward Chloe, some wide-eyed, some quietly watching. Vincent tilted his head. Didn't you want to call the cops? Here you go. He tossed his phone onto my desk. The video was still playing. Even though the footage was grainy, it was clear enough to make out Chloe's profile. Her walking back into the classroom in the dark, holding a pink notebook, closing the door behind her. Chad's expression twisted in disbelief. You said you just went to the restroom. Chloe's face went pale, then flushed. She couldn't come up with a single word. I kept my tone even. Let's call the police, then. Maybe they can help you find your missing notes. The girl in front of me stomped her foot, her eyes filling with tears. I forgot I took them home to review last night. I pressed the call button on my phone. Before it could connect, Chad snatched it from my hand, his face full of disapproval. It's just a notebook, Anna. Not worth it. So, I asked quietly, you gave away the notebook I made for you to her? The wind blew through the window, lifting half the curtain into the air. Chad's face changed. He looked at me, speechless. The classroom had gone completely silent. Finally, with some effort, he forced a small, awkward smile. I'll buy you another one tomorrow. 2, if you want. No need. I turned my eyes away. My gaze landed on Chloe. You accused me of taking your things. Now that it's proven I didn't, please put my desk back the way it was. Her face flushed bright red. The 2 girls who'd spoken up earlier jumped in to defend her. Anna, that's going too far, don't you think? I sat down calmly. Then call the police. Chloe's eyes immediately filled with tears. Anna, we're classmates, do you really have to make this so hard for me? I picked up Vincent's phone from the desk and, right in front of her, started to dial. Before the call could connect, she burst into sobs. Loud, trembling, like she'd been deeply wronged, then ran out of the room. Chad turned toward me, his face full of disappointment. Did you really have to take it this far? He said nothing more before hurrying after her. The two girls exchanged uneasy glances, then looked at me. I dropped back into my chair. If you're not cleaning up, I'll just wait for the teacher. I'll tell them everything. They hesitated, exchanging a look, then begrudgingly bent down to pick up my books and put them back on my desk. The bell rang. I let out a shaky breath. My palms were slick with sweat. But at least this time, I hadn't lost. Beside me, Vincent glanced my way, said nothing, and simply pulled his jacket back over his head again. Chapter 10. They came in halfway through class. The teacher motioned for them to sit down. Chloe's nose was still red from crying. Right before turning away, her eyes met mine, and instantly filled with tears again. Moments later, my phone buzzed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the notification. It was a message popped up on my phone. You really went too far this time. From the front of the room, the teacher's voice cut through the air. Chad, where was I just now? I lowered my gaze and focused on my notebook, forcing myself to take notes to keep up with the honors class pace. Chapter 11. Early the next morning, everything was the same seat, the same room. Chad was waiting there, holding two pink notebooks in his hands. When he saw me, he walked right over. Anna, here. These are yours. I didn't take them. He frowned. They're yours. I don't need them. Pink's too risky to use in the honors class. He looked embarrassed. Don't be like that. Chloe didn't mean any harm. Are you apologizing for her? I asked evenly. Chad fell silent. If it's not her apology, I won't accept it. I walked past him. He caught up quickly, voice rising in frustration. Anna, do you really think being close to Vincent makes everything fine? He only got into the honors class through connections. Everyone knows it. Stick with him, and you'll just drag yourself down. I stopped in my tracks. Then who should I stick with? You. Chad hesitated for a moment. You could rely on me. I met his eyes. No. I don't need to. I can rely on myself. Vincent had taught me that. No one in this world was born to help you. I worked harder than ever in the honors class, but my grades still hadn't caught up to the average. Chapter 12. The homeroom teacher suddenly made an announcement. The city's physics competition was about to begin. It wasn't on the national level, but it was still an honor for the school, and everyone was encouraged to participate. Chloe, being the class representative, quickly filled out the registration forms and turned them in to the teacher. When she came back to class, she walked straight up to me. Anna, she said brightly, the teacher said you're new here, so this will be your chance to shine in the physics competition. I blinked, not understanding. Physics was my weakest subject. Why would the teacher pick me? Chad stood up as well. Anna's not good at physics. Why would the teacher send her? Chloe turned toward him. Don't you trust me? Chad just looked at her and fell silent. I got up. I'll go ask the teacher myself. Chloe called out quickly from behind, your name's already submitted. I turned around. She tilted her head with an innocent smile. Isn't it good to have a chance to gain experience? Then why don't you go? I snapped, shaking with anger. Chad's gaze cooled. Chloe's just trying to help you catch up with the class. Chloe tugged at his sleeve gently. It's fine, Chad, don't upset her anymore. His expression turned impatient. He grabbed Chloe's wrist and led her back to her seat. Forget it. Leave her alone. The frustration in my chest suddenly calmed into something cold and steady. So that's how the honors class shows its unity, by humiliating people who aren't good at physics. Chad's face darkened. Anna, you're overreacting. He turned slightly and said in a softer tone. She's from the regular class. It's normal for her to be sensitive. Chloe nodded. She looked perfectly understanding. I don't mind. Really. Chapter 13. After that day, Chad started giving me the silent treatment. In the mornings, he no longer waited for me at the gate of our neighborhood. Both of the pink notebooks. He'd stack them neatly on Chloe's desk. All I could do was grit my teeth and push through page after page of physics problems. Then it happened again. In the restroom, and later in the hallway. I overheard them laughing. Nice one, Chloe. Letting someone like her enter the competition, she'll drag our class ranking down to the bottom. Another girl giggled softly. She came here trying to steal my spot. Shouldn't she pay for that somehow? Their laughter echoed down the corridor, sharp and brittle. I clenched the pen in my hand, trying to focus on the problem set. But my pen hovered above the paper. I couldn't write a single word. Next to me, my deskmate stirred from his nap. His voice was calm, almost lazy. When the side AB enters the magnetic field, apply Faraday's law of induction. I turned to him, startled. Vincent's eyes were cool and detached. Don't stare at me. Look at the problem. My heart just skipped a beat. I quickly lowered my gaze and followed his hint, tracing out the steps. Vincent frowned. You're struggling because you're trying to picture it in your head. Start by sketching side AB. He took my pen without asking. And began drawing the diagram line by line on the scrap paper. All the formulas that had seemed abstract and incomprehensible slowly took shape into something I could actually see. 0.5 backslash times 0.8 backslash times 2 equals 0.8 V. When I finally wrote down the result, I looked up at him in confusion. You're really good at this. Why does everyone avoid you? Wasn't the honors class supposed to admire strength and intelligence? Was it really because he got in through connections? Vincent looked at me, his expression unreadable. When someone's heart is full of filth, he said quietly. Everything they see looks dirty. Chapter 14. I clung to Vincent like a lifeline. Between every class, I'd chase him down with questions about all the physics concepts I couldn't wrap my head around. He always looked impatient, but no matter how annoyed he seemed, he still explained every single problem clearly, step by step. The physics competition was getting closer by the day. One night after the evening class, I lost track of time. By the time I packed up, it was already 10 o'clock. I gasped, apologizing quickly. Vincent said nothing, just gave a small nod. When we stepped out of the classroom, the moonlight was bright. The schoolyard glowed silver, not dark at all. At the gate, I spotted someone waiting. Our eyes met in the cold wind. Chad's gaze swept over me from head to toe. Anna, don't you think you're getting a little too close to Vincent? He frowned. Look at the time. It's the middle of the night. You think it's appropriate for a guy and a girl to be alone together? I froze. Done walking Chloe home already? His face went rigid. After a pause, his brows knit together. It's not the same thing. You're a girl, you should know where to draw the line. I stared at him, stunned. He went on, sounding almost righteous. We're in the same class now. I have a responsibility to look after you for your parents' sake. If they knew you were out this late with a boy, they'd stop you too. I couldn't help but laugh. Where was all this responsibility when I first joined the honors class? Chad froze. He licked his lips, looking uneasy. I didn't think you'd actually get in. You were the one who told me to transfer, I reminded him. He fell silent. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Save it. Don't use your fake moral high ground to guilt trip me. Suddenly, he grabbed my arm, frustrated. Anna, can't you tell I waited here on purpose? I was worried about you. Right. Thanks, I said flatly. Then paused. Now could you move? I'm going home. He snapped. What's with that attitude? I've been waiting out here for you, and you just act cold like this? What attitude do you want? I shot back, shaking his hand off. My studying this hard, it's thanks to your perfect desk partner, isn't it? Didn't you say I should keep up with the honors class pace? He was caught off guard. It took him a long moment to speak. If you needed help with physics, you could have come to me. I couldn't hold it in anymore, I laughed bitterly. I wouldn't dare waste your precious time. He hesitated, his eyes flickering, voice dropping low. Is this about Chloe? When I told you to transfer, I didn't even have a seatmate yet. The teacher assigned her later. You came afterward. You don't have to be jealous of her. Enough, Chad. I cut him off. If you want to play the devoted lover, that's your business. I'm not here to compete over a man. If you want to be a flirt, leave me out of it. I'm busy. Chad's face darkened. I brushed past him, heading into the building and up the stairs. Behind me, he shouted angrily, Anna, you're being ungrateful. I quickened my pace. And slammed the door shut with all my strength. Chapter 15. The next morning at school. I found a new notebook sitting on my desk. I flipped through the first few pages. They were filled with detailed notes and step-by-step physics solutions. The handwriting was unmistakably Chad's. I closed it quietly. Walked to the front of the room and placed it back on his desk. I didn't need it anymore. Chad walked in through the back door just then, his eyes landing immediately on the notebook. His expression darkened. He looked at me. Anna, don't regret this. The sharp crack of the notebook echoed through the classroom. I lowered my eyes and went back to working on the problems Vincent had left me yesterday. The citywide physics competition lasted 2 days. The venue was packed with top students from every school. My heartbeat quickened. Suddenly, I remembered what Vincent once said. Growing up is something everyone has to go through. You can only rely on yourself. I drew in a slow breath, trying to steady my pulse. Letting my mind settle in a place I had never been before. Chapter 16. After 2 days of competition, I returned to the honors class and heard a soft, gentle voice. The competitor's back. How'd it go? From the corner by the wall, another girl snickered. Let's hope you didn't embarrass the honors class. Everyone's eyes turned toward me, curious and judging. You don't have to worry about that, I said evenly. Then I looked straight at Chloe. And if I really did embarrass anyone, you should thank Chloe. She was the one who decided I should represent the class. Chloe froze, her face paling. What are you talking about? I know you don't like me, but you don't have to make things up. There it was again. That same act of weakness, drawing sympathy from everyone watching. As if to remind the whole class that she was the real center of this place. I smiled. Can someone add me to the class group chat? A notification popped up instantly, Vincent had sent the invite. I joined the chat and posted a screenshot of a message from the homeroom teacher. Didn't expect little Chloe to have such good judgment. When she recommended Anna for the competition, I thought she was joking. Followed by a thumbs up emoji. The entire room went silent. Expressions shifted all around me. In the class chat, Chad sent a single message, ? Chloe's composure cracked. She looked around nervously, forcing a shaky smile. You guys misunderstood. I did mention it, but the teacher was the one who said Anna was more suitable. No one responded. Her smile trembled, her eyes turning red. You don't believe me? The classroom was as quiet as stone. The honors class had always been exclusive, never eager to accept outsiders. But with proof right there, no one wanted to look foolish defending her. Chloe stomped her foot, then ran out of the room in tears. I calmly set my bag down on my desk. Vincent turned his head slightly, glancing at me. Maybe it was my imagination, but I could have sworn there was the faintest trace of approval in his eyes. Chapter 17. The results of the physics competition came out. I didn't exactly come out on top, but my unique approach to problem solving left a good impression on the judges. They gave me a special recognition certificate, an encouragement award. After evening study, someone appeared behind me as I walked out. The faster I walked, the faster he followed. Then Chad suddenly grabbed my arm halfway down the road. "Anna, why are you running?" "Going home." He paused. "I mean, why are you always avoiding me?" I frowned, unsure what he was getting at. He sighed. "I didn't know Chloe would deliberately make you enter that competition."
Yeah.
I nodded. His eyes lit up. "So you do understand me." He reached out, again trying to pat my head. "I'll make sure to keep an eye on your grades from now on." I turned my head to dodge him. "Are you done?" His promise stopped mid-sentence. "I need to go home," I said, my brow tightening. "Please don't block my way." Chad looked lost. "But I thought you understood me." I didn't know Chloe did it on purpose. I almost laughed. Even if I didn't want to talk, I couldn't help exposing him. "Didn't you say Chloe did it for my own good?" Chad froze, speechless. I brushed past him. "You two enjoy your little romance. Leave me out of it. I've got classes, and better things to do." "Anna." He called after me, looking completely bewildered. "Why have you become like this?" I hesitated for a moment, then kept walking. Behind me, I heard him mutter under his breath. "It wasn't even that big of a deal. You still got an award, didn't you?" Chapter 18. Somehow, word spread through the class. Everyone said my success in the physics competition was all thanks to Vincent tutoring me after hours. It was like the class had discovered a new continent. Students started coming to him for help with their physics problems every day. Even Chloe was among them. Vincent leaned against the wall, eyes closed, resting quietly. A carton of milk appeared on his desk. Chloe smiled brightly. "Vincent, could I ask you something?" I watched them in silence. A breeze drifted through the open window, lifting the edges of my test paper. I lowered my head. He'd probably say yes, wouldn't he? The image of Chad smiling at her flickered in my mind. My nose stung a little, though I couldn't quite say why. Time ticked by, 1 second after another. No response. I looked up, startled. Chloe's smile had frozen on her face. "Vincent?" Vincent opened his eyes, those narrow dark pupils filled with irritation. "You're too noisy." Chloe stood there, stunned. Tears welled up almost instantly in her wide eyes, humiliated beyond words. Her lips trembled as she looked toward me. "You're treating me like this, because of Anna, aren't you?" Vincent's gaze swept over her face, indifferent. "Stay away from me." I saw the color drain completely from Chloe's face. By all logic, this was the moment when Chad should have stepped in, the hero swooping in to save the day. I couldn't help glancing forward. Our eyes met, his gaze was complicated. But he didn't move. The bell rang. Chloe, eyes red and wet, went back to her seat. Vincent's stare lingered on me, unreadable. "Enjoying the show? Not enough problems to solve?" My heart skipped a beat. I quickly bent my head and started scribbling on my paper. "Wait, what? What's this got to do with me?" I sniffed quietly. And just like that, the sting in my chest was gone. Chapter 19. Sunday, a rest day. After the weekend came the third round of mock exams. Time seemed to crawl. Halfway through my practice problems, I was on a video call with Vincent for tutoring when a knock came at my door. My mom answered it and found Chad standing outside. "Chad. We just made some spare ribs," she said warmly. "Come join us for dinner." He thanked her, then walked straight to my room. "Anna," he said seriously, "our scores on the second mock were about the same. If it's the same this time, let's apply to the same university." He looked utterly sincere. "This time, I'll take good care of you." On the phone, Vincent's voice came through the speaker. "Should I step out for a bit?" Chad's face instantly darkened. You've been video calling him at home?" I frowned. "And what does that have to do with you?" His breath hitched, disbelief flashing across his face. "We promised, didn't we? That we'd work hard together?" "I see." I nodded lightly. "Didn't expect you'd actually get close to my score." The color drained from his face. You heard that." He froze mid-sentence. I nodded again. "I didn't dare walk home alone that night, and happened to overhear." Panic flickered in his expression. "I didn't mean it. I just said that carelessly." From the kitchen, my mom called out. "Dinner's ready. You two, wash up and eat." I looked at Chad quietly. "Chad, tell me, does my mom's cooking taste good?" He froze, realizing exactly what I meant. That promise he once made. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his shoulders sagged. "I really didn't expect things to turn out like this."
Yeah.
I said softly. "You thought this was as far as I'd ever go? That I didn't deserve to be in the same class as you? So you let Chloe pick at me, thinking I'd give up and crawl back to the lower class anyway, right?" He didn't respond. I smiled. "You weren't wrong to look out for yourself. And I've never said you were wrong. But Chad, someone like you, I don't want in my life anymore. And that's not wrong either." He just stood there, speechless. From the dining room, my mom called again. "Chad. Come on, dinner's ready." I stood up and called back. "Coming." Then, suddenly, Chad turned and rushed out the door. Behind me, my mom peeked out, puzzled. "Where's Chad?" "Dinner's getting cold." I sat back down. "He's not eating. He won't be coming back for dinner ever again." Chapter 20. The third mock exam. It was Vincent's first time taking one. And he stunned everyone. Ranked first on the board. The entire class was in shock. They crowded around his seat, shoulder to shoulder. "Whoa, so you were the hidden genius all along. You're a total prodigy, how do you solve this one? Can you share your method?" His expression stayed calm. He glanced around at the crowd. "I'm not a genius," he said evenly. "I'm just someone with connections." For a moment, everyone froze in awkward silence. No one knew what to say. Then, unexpectedly, Vincent took the workbook from the student who'd asked the question. And his low voice carried through the room as he began explaining. I turned toward the window. The school's outer wall had been freshly painted blue. And under the sunlight it glowed softly. A quiet voice cut through my thoughts. "Anna. Focus." "Sorry." I snapped back to attention. The college entrance exams lasted 3 days. It wasn't until then that I realized. Since transferring into the advanced class, I'd really grown. Not just in grades, but in how I faced every test. No more panic. No more breathless fear. When the results came out, I'd done better than almost everyone expected. They said Vincent scored among the very top in the province. After the announcement, my phone rang. "Apply to Northbridge University," he said. "What?" "Northbridge University." He repeated, calm and certain. I had been considering another northern university. But hearing his steady tone, I felt something settle inside me. Okay, I said. Chapter 21. Before leaving, Chad came to see me one last time. He was waiting downstairs, his voice hoarse. Anna, he said, did you forget? We promised we'd work hard together. Back then, we both understood what that meant. As long as we got into the same school, we'd stay together forever. I looked at him and said slowly. Then go to the person you actually care about. Clearly, that's not me. I'd heard from the class group chat. Chloe had been accepted into an art school. The moment her admission came through, she blocked every one of our classmates. Even the homeroom teacher. I wasn't sure if it was because things hadn't gone the way she'd hoped. Chad reached out, wanting to pat my head. I stepped back, avoiding him. Chad, stop pretending to be the tragic lover here. I paused, then added. It's kind of disgusting. I couldn't read his expression anymore. I just turned and walked away. When my mom came back from the market, she sounded curious. That boy Chad from across the hall. He was standing downstairs for ages. Looked like he'd lost his mind. I grabbed her arm, smiling. Mom, I want mac and cheese. Got it, you glutton. She headed into the kitchen. Then called out again a moment later. Once your new term starts, your dad and I will move into the new place. When you come home for break, don't go to the wrong apartment. Okay, Mom. She lowered her voice. I overheard the neighbors talking. Chad didn't do so well this time. His college is pretty far away. Who knows if you two will ever meet again. My hands froze mid-packing. Mom, there'll be new neighbors soon enough. Later, on the train, I ran into Vincent. He helped me carry my luggage all the way. Until we reached the exit. He handed me my suitcase. The corners of his eyes shadowed with something I couldn't quite read. Go on, Anna, he said quietly. This is as far as I can take you.